At the top stories we're tracking for you. Hamas is ready for immediate talks to end the Gaza war and has agreed to release hostages under a US-backed plan already accepted by Israel. Though key issues like disarmament remain unresolved, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office has confirmed preparations for the immediate implementation of the first stage of the peace plan. Turkey has said that 36 citizens who were all in the flotilla that was intercepted by the Israeli forces are expected to return to Turkey via a special flight today, according to Turkish Foreign Ministry spokesman Onku Keseli. Gaza Civil Defense has reported dozens of airstrikes and artillery shelling on Gaza City today, despite US President Donald Trump's appeal to halt bombardments. Simultaneously, an Israeli hostage forum has urged Prime Minister Netanyahu to begin talks on implementing Trump's Gaza peace plan. Russian forces have damaged production sites in Ukraine's Kharkiv and Poltava regions, while Ukrainian drones have targeted a Russian oil refinery. The head of the IAEA has called for political will from both Russia and Ukraine to restore power to the Russian-held Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, Europe's largest, has been without external power since the 23rd of September. Sane Takaichi has won Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party leadership, positioning her to become the country's first woman prime minister. The 64-year-old conservative defeated 44-year-old Shinjiro Koizumi in a runoff and now will face challenges including an aging population, geopolitical tensions and immigration issues while trying to revive the LDP after it lost majorities in both houses. Munich Airport has now resumed its operations after the shutdown for the second consecutive day due to drone sightings. German Interior Minister Alexander Dobrindt is urging urgent national and EU-level action as authorities investigate possible security breaches. The death toll from the Indonesian boarding school collapse has risen to 14 pupils, with nearly 60 students still trapped under the rubble as rescuers deploy cranes and sensors to continue the search. The tragedy occurred during afternoon prayers on Monday, affecting mainly teenage boys. Czechs have voted in a general election, with billionaire Andrej Babis leading the polls with over 30% support, threatening to shift the country closer to EU's Hungary and Slovakia by halting military aid to Ukraine. Prime Minister Peter Fiala has warned the vote would decide Czech Republic's future alignment, while concerns grow over far-right SPD's rising influence. A senior Hamas official has said that Egypt would organize a conference for Palestinian factions to decide on the post-war future of the Gaza Strip, after the group accepted to release hostages under a US ceasefire plan. According to reports, Egypt will host an intra-Palestinian dialogue on Palestinian unity and the future of Gaza, including the administration of the Gaza Strip. This comes as Hamas said it would release hostages held in Gaza under US President Donald Trump's ceasefire plan, but did not address the issue of disarmament and its exile from the Palestinian territory after the war's end. Ali Mohammed Abu Shbak, independent Palestinian researcher, is joining us live from Cairo, Egypt. Ali, what is expected from this conference in Egypt on the way forward for the Palestinians?
Thank you for having me. The thing is, it's a good atmosphere and it's a positive atmosphere among the Palestinians as well as in the Israelis as well. So I guess this conference is going to gather the Palestinian function with regard to one decision about the future of Palestine and the future of the Palestinian statehood. Also, according to the several of news media, they are confirming that Israel's delegation, they are going to exist and going to visit Egypt. And there is a pressure to make it as a today night to visit Egypt to resume the negotiation with Hamas today night with the coming time. So I guess nowadays we are witnessing that a development in the a ceasefire. So we are hoping that will happen. With regard the conference between the Palestinian function is to select one representative for the Palestinian and make it one word for the Palestinian among the atmosphere in the Palestinians. There is a fragmentation and there is a huge gap between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. And there is a several of party like Fatah also. They are not in that scene, and they didn't see any response for Fatah with regard to the Hamas acceptance of the Donald Trump proposal or plan for peace. So I guess also we are witnessing a development in this case.
Absolutely. Ali, also, is there a sense perhaps that there will be also deliberations on what wider Palestinians think on this peace plan? Because so far Hamas has given a conditional yes to it. They've agreed to release the hostages, but they've remained silent on other issues. Is it believed then that in this conference, a wider Palestinian view will be taken on the other issues as well, outlined in this peace plan?
In my opinion, also Palestinians, there is a confirmation for all the Palestinians that if there is a Palestinian statehood, there will be disarmed statehood without a military, without anything. So about Hamas weapons, if the Israel is going to apply and showing its adhere with regard the new peace process or the new deal with the Palestinian function, because now will be not only Hamas, the negotiation will be all the Palestinian function in this negotiation. So I guess Hamas is going to apply for this, and Hamas was so clear in the very beginning about the comprehensive or releasing the hostages in one time rather to be in many phases. So also Hamas always related releasing the hostages with end the war or with a ceasefire for listing a peace with the Palestinian and Israel, or a truce with Israel. So these things, I guess, it's going through a good atmosphere. And also it will bring a peace in the region. But there is no guarantee with regard Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu, and we have seen also Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday. He's warning the many ministers to not giving any statement on media with regard the deal with Hamas response and these things. So this has a many sharpening a several of a question about is this Israel is going to accept this deal? Is Israel going to applying this peace for ceasefire or no? Because we have also an example during the mid of January and the end of March, when Israel suddenly resumed the war and end the negotiation with Hamas, what was hosted in Qatar. So these things, I guess there is no guarantee for Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu, as they are acting with amputation and acting with no punishment above the international law. But on the ground, Palestinians they have nothing except hope. They have nothing except to pray for peace.
Absolutely. Well, meanwhile, Palestinians have expressed belief after US President Trump called for a halt to the bombing in Gaza, saying Hamas is ready for peace and agrees to release hostages under a US brokered plan. One displaced resident in central Gaza said he had been waiting for this news for a long time as smoke rises from the horizon. Let's in fact listen in to what some of them have said on ground.
هذه الأخبار اللي سمعناها يعني أخبار كويسة، زمان احنا بنستنى فيها، لأنه البلد ما أنت شايف صارت فوضى وفيش أمان ورعب وخوف وجوع، وخلاص يعني بكفي يعني تشرد الناس من بيوتها للشوارع، عرفت؟ والحمد لله إنه يعني وافقوا على الخطة تاعت ترامب هذا وتوقيف الحرب.
هنا يثبت يعني ويكون فعلا واقعي، فعلا هذا الشيء انه احنا خلص يعني انتهت الحرب فعليا وانتهى الحزن فعليا وبدوا في اعمار غزه، اقل القليل ينظفوا الوساخه اللي طلعت يعني هذا، والشوارع اللي احنا انبادت هذه كلها مجاري ووسخ كله جراثيم، الناس كلها بتعاني من الجراثيم، الاوبئه، الاطفال قاعده مريضه، الاطفال مريضه.
On the other hand, Israelis are remaining cautious but hopeful after Hamas accepted parts of the US president's plan to end the war in Gaza. Residents in Tel Aviv say they want to see hostages returned and suffering stopped, but are waiting to see action.
We heard many times we heard about negotiation or trying to ceasefire and bring the hostages. I heard Hamas is kind of agreed. I really hope it will be. It's not. I really hope it's not just they're not playing games, and I really hope to see everybody home as soon as possible. It should have been much earlier, but I mean, I really want to see everybody home, and I want all suffering from any side will stop soon. And that's it. I'm crossing my fingers that it really happened this time.
I'm really happy if the plan comes to action and the hostages come free, but you know, I'll believe it when I see it. I'm very reluctant to think that something might not go wrong along the way before it actually happens.
Well, Turkey, meanwhile, has said that 36 of its citizens were expected to return home via a special flight this afternoon after Israel had intercepted a Gaza-bound aid flotilla. The Turkish Foreign Ministry spokesman Onku Keseli has said that we expected 36 of our nationals on the global Sumud flotilla vessel seized by Israeli forces in international waters will return to our country this afternoon via a special flight. He also said that efforts were underway to complete the procedures for the remaining citizens as soon as possible so that they can come to Turkey. He also added that third country nationals were also planned to be on board the flight. Turkey has called the Israeli interception an act of terrorism and said it had opened an investigation after Israeli forces arrested Turkish citizens on board the flotilla. Ali Mohammed Abushbak is live with us on this big story, independent Palestinian researcher. Ali, what do you make of this fresh development coming in? 8 Turkish nationals all set to return to Turkey after they were, of course, detained for being on board that flotilla.
The thing is, the Israelis intercept for the flotilla. It's considered for many international experts and international law experts. They consider it as illegal, especially they are intercepted in international water. So the thing is, I guess nowadays also Israel should be careful with the Turkey, especially after in 2010, where during the crisis between Israel and Turkey about Marmara's flotilla, when Israel killed around 11 Turkey activists. So that's costed a lot, and Israel's Turkey relationship has been halted at that time. So the thing is, nowadays Israel should be careful about it. And also Israel arrested around 20 journalists during that time, and more than of them civilians, and more than of them activists. They came to help the civilians in Gaza. So now Israel in hard place with regard to the flotilla. And also we have seen a footage that released by Israelis news media that the infamous Israeli minister Ben-Gvir, he called them as a terrorist, and he insulted this activist. So that will keep the relationship with Israel and Turkey and several of countries like also Italy, that will make the relationship a bit tough and intense. So I guess nowadays Israel should be careful about this. Among of the international community, they are condemning the Israelis' interception and dehumanizing the activists and dehumanizing the civilians who came to help civilians in Gaza. Among of this atmosphere, there is several of a protest taking to street in Western countries, condemning the Israelis' action, intercepting the flotilla in the international water, that make it more crisis and impacted and damaging the Israelis' reputation. Not here I'm talking about in media, but also about public opinion, who's nowadays turned from adopting the Palestinians' narrative rather than to hear the Israelis' narrative. And I said in 2010, during the Marmara flotilla and the aggression and the action was unappropriated, and the
yes, which is why Turkey, in fact, has called the Israeli interception an act of terrorism. They've reacted very strongly to this.
There is no doubt, and also there is no doubt the relationship between Turkey and Israel now, it's intense, and they hold the trade, and they hold all the relationship, and they reduce the investment in Israel, and they are, I mean, these kind
Yes.
of things creating the things is more worth than before.
Ali, thank you for joining us with your perspective on this story. The federal government is shut down in the United States of America after lawmakers failed to agree on a budget affecting operations across October and beyond. States including California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, Minnesota, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Oregon, Vermont and Washington face cuts in federal funding. About 750,000 federal workers, nearly 40% of the workforce, are on unpaid leave, impacting services from air travel to social programs. National parks, research agencies like CDC and NIH, and food assistance programs could also see interruptions, while essential staff continue unpaid work. White House freezes infrastructure funding, affecting billions worth of projects in Democratic-run states, meanwhile deepening economic impact of the shutdown. Emma Long, Associate Professor in American History and Politics at University of East Anglia, is joining us live from London. Emma, thanks for being with us today on NewsX World. What is the hit that the US economy is likely to take as a result of this shutdown, and how long more do you expect it to continue?
Thanks for having me. I mean, the length of the shutdown is unclear at the moment. Okay, historically, they've run from a day or two to the longest one in history under Trump's first administration, which ran for 35 days. At the moment, neither side seems particularly willing to negotiate. They both want things that the other side isn't prepared to offer. So for the moment, it looks like it's set to stay, at least for the next few days. As you pointed out, the financial effects are immediate and will start to bite pretty quickly for many Americans. So how long this goes on may well depend on how quickly public pressure is put on both sides to come to some kind of agreement. And also, I think probably whether one side or the other feels that the pressure is leaning more on them to find a conclusion.
Absolutely. Emma, what's also the extent of the shutdown? If you could just elaborate for our viewers, because what we are learning is that, the jobs data report has been delayed. It never came out last Friday. There are various other Democratic, ruled states which also face infrastructure fund cuts as well. Can you just tell us a bit more about the impact that this shutdown is having in various parts of the United States?
Sure. I mean, at a national level, I mean, estimates suggest that this shutdown could cost anywhere between $10 and $15 billion a day in lost GDP. Historically, shutdowns, the impact on the GDP has largely been recovered, but it takes a little while to feed its way back in. So in the short term, what you've got are people working without pay, in the hope that will come back sooner rather than later. You've got some people not receiving assistance programs and welfare programs, which obviously have an impact. More broadly, thinking about state levels, what you're seeing and what we've seen in the last couple of days is the Trump administration hanging on to or refusing to pass on funds that had been approved for particular projects. So, for example, Chicago has lost $2.1 billion for a transportation infrastructure project that it was expecting to get. New York has been targeted particularly. It's roughly, it seems, lost about $18 billion for also a transport infrastructure project. And about 16 states have lost money that was intended to subsidize sort of renewable energy programs that obviously have been targeted by the Trump administration as not fitting in with their approach to issues of energy and the climate. Yes. So you're seeing sort of both individual level impact, but also to the economy more generally, and how large that impact to the American economy will be is going to depend very much on how long this shutdown continues for.
Emma, thank you very much for joining us with your perspective on that story. Now, in Ukraine's Sumy region, a Russian drone strike targeted a passenger train at a station in Shostka yesterday, injuring at least 30 passengers and rail workers. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has termed the Shostka station strike savage. Rescue teams and medical personnel are working on site to treat the wounded, with no fatalities reported in the immediate aftermath. The train was heading from Shostka to the capital city of Kyiv when the attack occurred. Meanwhile, Moscow has intensified strikes on Ukraine's railway infrastructure, hitting it almost daily over the past 2 months. Simultaneously, in Chernihiv region, Russian drones struck several power facilities overnight, leaving approximately 50,000 consumers without electricity. Energy companies have started restoration efforts, but hourly outages continue, operating on a 3-hour or, 3 hours, of course, off schedule, reportedly. Additionally, officials have urged residents to conserve electricity and prioritize safety while repair work progresses. This attack, of course, comes after earlier strikes in Chernihiv and surrounding areas, including an attack on a power facility in Slavutsk on the 1st of October, which left parts of the region without electricity and caused a blackout at the Chernobyl nuclear plant that lasted over 3 hours. Andrew Latham, Professor of International Relations, is joining us live from Minneapolis. Andrew, what do you make of this latest Russian offensive on Ukraine?
Well, it's of a piece with their strategic bombing campaign, if I can put it that way, that's been going on now for many, many months, roughly paralleling and equivalent to the Allied bombing campaigns against Germany and against Japan during the Second World War, although, of course, far more proportional and far more discriminate. And the idea is, of course, to break the will of the Ukrainian people by inconveniencing, by breaking the economic infrastructure that supports the forces at the front, by diverting resources so that they have to defend rail nodes and power plants rather than frontline troops. All of this is part of Russia's overall approach to prosecuting this war and has historical precedents and seems to be biting.
Yes, absolutely. But Andrew, looking at this latest offensive, does peace look anywhere possible in the near future?
Well, I hate to sound like an academic, but it depends on your definition of peace. Will the fundamental underlying differences between Kyiv and Moscow be resolved anytime soon? Absolutely not. They're fundamental, they're existential. I don't think they can be negotiated away. Are we likely to get a ceasefire or an armistice, something like happened on the Korean Peninsula in 1953, a temporary end to the armed phase of hostilities? I think that's a possibility. We're not there yet. That requires both sides to be exhausted and neither side to think that it's definitively winning. And I don't think we're quite there yet, but I think that's just around the corner. And that's probably the only way out of this military dead end.
All right, Andrew, appreciate you joining us with your perspective on that story. Afghanistan's Taliban foreign minister will be visiting India this month after the UN Security Council committee temporarily lifted a travel ban. Amir Khan Muttaqi will become the first senior Taliban leader to visit India since he returned to power in 2021 after the withdrawal of the US military. The foreign ministry has said that Muttaqi would go to India after the Moscow summit on the 7th of October, which includes representatives from China, India, Iran and Central Asian nations. The UN Security Council committee has granted an exemption to the travel ban on Muttaqi, who's under UN sanctions, to allow him to visit New Delhi between the 9th of October and the 16th of October. Munich Airport, meanwhile, has resumed flight operations following 2 runway closures in less than 24 hours due to unconfirmed drone sightings near the runways. Authorities expect delays throughout the day as they work through a backlog of cancellations and diversions that stranded over 6,500 passengers. On Friday night and early Saturday, both runways were shut as a precaution, with 23 flights diverted and 60 flights cancelled or postponed. Airport officials provided stranded passengers with blankets and refreshments. German Interior Minister Alexander Dobrindt has vowed faster legislation to empower police to shoot down unauthorized drones amidst rising security concerns. Let's in fact listen in to some affected passengers.
Yeah, I don't know how it's going on though. My flight got cancelled last night like everybody else's probably. So I'm now waiting to see how I can get back my bag because I got another flight from another airport 200 kilometers away. So I'm trying to figure out this. So we're just staying in line and waiting for somebody to support us, I guess.
Well, we spent the night in the airport. We slept here. I think that the closing is valid. You know, we still have a war going on in Europe, but I do not like that the Lufthansa closed its like counter yesterday at 11, and they invited like police to like, how do you say it, to get us away from the counter. I don't know, it's not like really something I'm used to, that you bring like a force, like authority to deal with that kinds of things. Also haven't been provided meal tickets yet.